Wow, thank you very much indeed. Good morning, everybody. This is my first conference back as leader of UKIP at a time when absolutely everything we have stood for and fought for is now at the centre of the national debate. Nobody can say anything other that UKIP now is a mainstream British political party. And as we showed in Barnsley earlier this year in the by-election when we came second, it is not just in European elections that we're succeeding. We're beginning to make real progress under first past the post. In the opinion polls, our ratings have never been higher. And frankly, I'm not really very surprised, because if you look at our three established political parties, they are virtually indistinguishable from each other on most major policy issues. You may have heard this before, but I don't apologise for repetition. You can't put a cigarette paper between them. Our political class are now so hidebound by the European Union and political correctness that they simply refuse to stand up for the nation. Their broken promises and failure to deal with real issues has led to an almost total breakdown in faith and trust in politics in this country. We are being led by a group of college kids with no experience of the real world and who always put their careers first. And that loss of faith certainly applies to the Liberal Democrats. Though quite why they're named that way is a mystery to me. They seem to support bans on everything, do everything they can to stop us having referendums on key issues. They are neither liberal nor democratic. But they have over the last few years been a growing receptacle for votes for people who said a plague on both your houses. But it's different now, because they're in government. And now we've found out what they're really like. The charming Vince Cable must be the first ever business secretary that hates private enterprise and hates business. We have the Environment Secretary, the ever-ambitious Christopher Hoon, who has decided he's going to cover the whole of the United Kingdom in tens of thousands of expensive, wasteful, ghastly, ugly wind turbines, and we don't want them. Oh, and I nearly forgot. Of course, there's the issue of tuition fees as well, isn't there? I think that faith and trust in the Liberal Democrats has since last year snapped like an elastic band. And I'm very pleased to say that in recent polls in the north of England, in London, and amongst 18 to 24-year-olds across this country, UKIP is now consistently beginning to beat the Liberal Democrats in poll after poll. The loss of faith in Labour hasn't, in my view, been recovered. Years of broken promises, disastrous public finances. Have you seen the price of gold, Gordon? And, of course, a series of endless foreign wars. But perhaps worse than that has been the betrayal of working-class people in this country by Labour by pursuing an open-door immigration policy depriving British workers of jobs. And what makes me really angry is that since 2004, as an excuse for opening the doors to the whole of Eastern Europe, the Labour Party began the myth that all British workers are useless, lazy, can't be bothered and are not worth employing. Fancy saying that about your own population to open up the door to somebody else. I think it's a disgrace. Yes, of course, we know we do have some people living on benefit, dealing in a few drugs on the side, going out on the odd ride. Yes, we've got social problems. But there are huge numbers of good, ordinary, decent people in this country that want to work, that want to obey the law. They've been denied from doing it, and I would say that now UKIP is the champion for those people and not the Labour Party. But the biggest loss of faith in British politics has only just begun. Slowly but surely, the myth that the Conservatives are better than the other lot, the myth that the Conservatives will stand up for the nation, is beginning to unravel. For 13 years, the Conservatives were in opposition, and that, of course, is most of the time that this party has actually been in existence. And for years people said, Nigel, I agree with you, but we have to vote Conservative because we want to get Labour out. And they used to tell me, you'll be surprised, they said, just you wait till David gets in. Well, David is in, isn't he? And if you voted Conservative, believing that he would keep his promise, his cast-iron guarantee to give you a referendum on our relationship with the European Union, well, you've been let down, haven't you? If you voted Conservative, believing that he would cut immigration from hundreds of thousands a year to tens of thousands a year, you can see that in year one, the figures were up by 21%. You've been let down. And if you voted for David Cameron, believing that he was going to get rid of European human rights legislation, that somehow, as it made him feel sick to the bottom of his stomach, that prisoners should get the vote, that he was going to do something about it, well, you've been let down like a cheap pair of braces. And the same goes for law and order. The same goes for the repeal of the hunting ban. The same goes for preserving and protecting the green belt. And the same most certainly goes for the absolutely despicable way this government has cut back on our armed forces. Now, some will say, but it's all because he's trapped in a coalition. But you only have to listen to Ken Clarke on crime, or the reworked Foreign Secretary William Hague on foreign policy, or Andrew Mitchell on the foreign aid contribution, to realise one stark fact. The Conservatives are part of the problem and not the solution. And they get their votes. They get their votes. The Conservatives get their votes by promising to stand up for the nation, and the truth is they never really mean it in the first place. What they are engaged in is an exercise in mass deception, and they're being rumbled. If you're a patriotic, Eurosceptic Conservative voter under David Cameron, your party has now ceased to exist. If you want to vote for what you believe in, you must come and vote UKIP. It's as simple as that. And can I just remind, maybe not UKIP voters, but can I just remind those in the Labour, Liberal Democrat, and perhaps particularly today in the Conservative Party, can I just remind people what the UKIP policy on the European Union is? We seek an amicable divorce from the political European Union and its replacement with a genuine free trade agreement, which is what we thought we'd signed up for in the first place. And let's be encouraged that this is not just happening here, it is happening right across Northern Europe. That whole political class are under attack for such stupidities as the euro and the illegalities of the bailouts. And I must say, I have a feeling that the days of my good old friend Herman Van Rompuy may be numbered. Do you know, he didn't send me a Christmas card? Extraordinary, isn't it? Yeah, no, at least we know who he is now, though, don't we? I am delighted that we have here supporting us today Nicola Dupont-Aignan, we've got Barry Madlena and Timo Soini from Finland, and nobody has done more to rock the establishment, not just in his own country, not just in his own capital in Helsinki, but in the corridors of Brussels as well. Timo, they're terrified of you. You've got them on the run. But commentators will be making a mistake if they think the growth in all these political movements is purely a protest against what's going on now. It is far deeper, far more genuine than that. What is actually happening is all these people on this platform are setting out positive alternatives, are looking for a new kind of politics. And right at the heart of that politics is, whilst we want to be friends and neighbours, whilst we want to trade with each other, we insist, all of us on this platform, that the best thing we can do in our own countries is to put the interests of our nations and our nations' peoples first. That is the move that is sweeping across Europe. Now, I am not saying that the day we leave the European Union, that'll be a good party, won't it? But I am not saying that the day we leave the European Union, all our problems will be solved. They won't. We've got some desperate problems in this country, and it is now up to us as a party to paint a vision of how an independent Britain could and should be run. It's important we let people know that we will campaign and fight to end mass, uncontrolled immigration into this country. It is vital. It is vital that people understand that UKIP is the only party that believes in reintroducing selective education in this country to make sure that the brightest children from the poorest backgrounds get the best possible education and start in life. It is important that people understand that when we say, if we had the opportunity to cut back on the quangos and the quangocrats, we wouldn't just say it, we'd actually do it. It's important people know these things. And it's important people know that we're the one party that wants to get government off our backs. We're grown-ups and we should be treated as such. We're the only proper libertarian party in this country. We've got too much government. But I think we have to recognise that within our own political union, the United Kingdom, that one or two things have changed in the last decade. Many of us were nervous of devolution for Scotland and Wales and were worried that it might lead to the break-up of the Union. But none of us could have predicted exactly how this would play out. Now, I put it to you that the devolution genie is very firmly out of the bottle and it's not going to be put back. But it's created a problem. Not in Scotland or Wales particularly, or Northern Ireland. No, it's created a problem in England. Because the English feel put upon. The English think it's unfair that Scottish and Welsh members of Parliament can vote on English-only legislation, but they can have no say in Scotland or Wales. But it's more than that. It's more than just the West Lothian question. I think there is a growing feeling in England, and certainly I feel it and share it, there is a growing feeling that somehow our leaders are ashamed of the very word England. We are discouraged. We are discouraged from describing ourselves as English. Our leaders seem to reel in horror at the idea of the cross of St. George. And I think that we need to do something to plug that gap. The English need and deserve equality with our other partners in this union, and it's for that reason that yesterday the National Executive of this party discussed a change, a shift in policy, and we are now going to campaign for the English to have their own parliament, just like the Welsh and the Scots. And that actually this is the only way of saving the Union. Because if we carry on with this level of English resentment over the voting system, over the amount of money that goes north of the border, if we continue with this, it'll be the English that end the Union by voting to get rid of Scotland and not Alex Salmond doing it to us. Let's save the Union and let's give the English people the self-respect and pride that they so desperately need and deserve.